Nick Love. It's Ray Winstone. Skipping Hayley Atwell. Please welcome Ben Drew. And second last but not least, Alan Leach. Hayley will join us when she negotiates his voice lips. Hayley Atwell.
You know what they're like.
Wait for her to sit,
Okay. So this obviously started with the 1970s TV show. I just want to talk very briefly about your memories of that show. And Nick, I'll start with you and then work our way down the line. Your memories of the show?
My memory of the Sweeney was I was allowed to watch it if I was well behaved, so I never saw it.
That's all.
No, I mean I saw the later stuff on 42, so I saw the last series I think, but it was really only a treat for me to be able to watch it. So I started watching it, when it kind of when it started coming on Saturday television.
Damian?
Yeah, we're all measuring ourselves on whether we were old enough to see it first time around. I got some early 80s reruns, and it was. I certainly didn't make an effort to watch it before I accepted this because I wanted to come to it fresh. And this, as you know, is a different thing anyway. It's set now, so I've avoided it mostly, to be honest.
Fantastic. And Ray.
Yeah, for me, the Sweeney, because I am old enough to remember it, and remember it very well, because it was kind of groundbreaking TV at the time. You had Dixon and Doc Green and Softly Softly, which were great shows in their own right, but this was probably the first show that I can remember that came on TV that was down and dirty, if you like, and I think we could all kind of relate to it in a way, or where I live, you could anyway. So it was kind of real on TV, and I think it was probably groundbreaking for all over the world. And now you've got shows like The Wire in America and HBO stuff that are making kind of the same sort of stuff, and maybe updated, but it all kind of, for me, came from the Sweeney. And that's what the impression that kind of got left on my mind.
Can you read it?
Yeah. That went down well, didn't it? Okay.
I'd never seen it. I was too young, but it was. I knew it was iconic. And when I said to people that I was in it, then we started to say the catchphrases, which we I think created our own a little bit in this. But I knew it was. It had a huge impact of the time. It kind of broke through. But the great thing about this is it felt something completely new and fresh for now. That wasn't trying to remake anything, but had just a different interpretation of what this branch were about and what they got up to.
And Ben, did you grow up with the Sweeney?
No, I didn't. I was obviously aware of Dennis and John as actors, and I was familiar with their faces. But I think it was, I was prejudiced with black and white film growing up. This thing was cool as all the stuff we had in colour, and then stuff that was really dated that looked like it was from the 70s also had no interest. And I think she's on that show, I kind of, if I saw it on TV, I just flipped over, when I had the opportunity to be in it, with the remake with Ray and Nick and everyone else, I watched the original pilot and feature-length version. But yeah, I watched it and I felt it was dated, and I felt if we're going to do a version of it now, set now, then I'm up for it because it gives us the freedom to reinvent it. And crime and language, slang, everything on the street has changed. And we have to move with the times, and I feel that's what we try to achieve with this film,
And Alan?
Kind of similar, only really referencing, older generations to kind of talk about it. So I was aware of it, obviously. Then I got the 90s reruns. Let's say, got the 80s.
Okay, let's put questions out on the floor. Let's start with John here in the fourth one.
I'll just do it without a microphone, since there doesn't seem to be one available. It's a question for Ray Winstone. In fact, two questions for you, Ray. I wondered, after Beowulf, if you saw Jack Reagan as the latest stage in establishing yourself as a rugged sex symbol. And the second question is, those boxer shorts, unusual colour, were you hoping to set a trend in fashion, or were you wearing them for a bet?
No, but it's nice of you, John, and I do know you. But the thing is, I've got a bit of advice for you though. Don't wear yellow when you're in a sweaty room all day. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I just think it was the only underpants I had for the day, and I like yellow underpants. All right. As a sex symbol, I don't know what is appealing to women. I'm a 55-year-old fat man, and I think it's the way you treat women that makes you sexy, if you like. You've got to be genuine, you've got to be, I don't know, a bit of a gentleman and a bit of a rogue at the same time. But if you try and set out to be that, you're never going to achieve it. I don't know how that works. Ask ladies. Ladies are the ones who know how that works. I haven't got a clue, But if I am, fantastic, I love it.
Let's ask the lady actually, Hayley, what's your take on the love scene of this film? And please,
yeah, well, as a lady, I think I will have to say that charisma and presence and good manners and a great sense of humour goes a long way, a lot more than a six-pack does, anyway, and more than arrogance does. Yeah.
You told me that in the beginning.
but it's true. I think that I don't want to talk about it in front of it.
No, please.
But it was, I do think that. I find that I'm much more attracted to someone who just naturally carries himself with confidence, but it's a genuine confidence. It's not based on trying to impress anyone or insecurity or, trying to be something that you're not, and it comes from far deeper, and it's people who just know, if you know yourself, I think that becomes instantly very attractive, and I think that's across the board for women as well. There's a way of women carry themselves which has a confidence that makes them feel that they're womanly, rather than trying to, impress the lads with a short skirt for the sake of it. I think it.
Oh, you got that wrong.
I was going to ask you about raising hands. I think we should probably move on. There's Junket here in the second row.
Another question for Ray, slightly tongue-in-cheek, but you have some intimate scenes with Hayley early in the movie, Ray.
Yeah.
Is that one of the perks of being an executive producer?
Yeah. The terminology of executive producer is means you do absolutely nothing. I don't know what it is. You put your name onto a film, and I'm very proud to have my name on that film. But as for developing the film, other than from an actor's point of view, I had nothing to do with it. That was down to Vertigo, Chris, and all the people there. They put this film together, and I must say as well, I've worked on some British films, which I love doing. But the package and the way they're distributing the film with the company they're working with has been better, far better than any other film I've worked on. For once, I've worked on a film where they know how to sell it. The rest is up to the public whether they like it or not, but they have really put it together very, very well. So that's got nothing to do with me. My name's just there, and it means absolutely nothing. That's down to Vertigo and the people who are distributing this film, as far as I'm concerned.
There's a lady here in the second row.
It's a question for Ben and Lee, please. Did you gain anything from working with each other, and if so, what
Money.
was it? Apart from money.
Oh. Ben, you have that?
I learned a lot as an actor. I think I've been getting by and more talent my whole career. When I started as a musician, I taught myself how to play guitar, and the songs I wrote was stuff I I wrote in my bedroom based on, I guess, a natural ability that I had and influenced by certain artists. It's no different with acting. You know, it was something that I just done. You know, and I didn't have any kind of training. I didn't kind of look at it as a science, but as much as it's about emotion and raw talent, there is a science to it as well, a psychology to it, and I learned a lot about myself and my strengths as an actor by being in this film. I was way out of my comfort zone, and there was times where I think I wasn't as strong as I could have been, and Nick and Ray would pull me up on it, and not just pull me up on it, tell me I'm doing it wrong, but you know, Ray was always there to offer me another way of looking at it, thinking about it, doing it, and you know, in this game you've got to think fast, because time is money, and I tried to think on my feet as fast as I could, and you know, it seemed to work. Nick would have done and moved on when he felt like, yeah, something was happening. And yeah, I learned a lot from this experience, and I hope, you know, hopefully it's not my last film. Going forward, I can learn a lot more.
Yeah, I think you always that goes for everyone around you. You know, for me anyway, I turn up at the film. I'm not necessarily 100% sure what I'm going to do or how I'm going to go about it. You know. But I think you're thinking about it all the time and you don't really know you are, and then you turn up and with people like Ben, and especially with young actors that are coming on, they're so far in front of what we were when we were that age, and probably still are, you know, at my age now, you know, work with some great young actors, but it kind of reminds you, it ups your game, number one, and it kind of reminds you of the basics, you know, that you forget about, because you think, you know, where I used to run around the block when I was, you know, you hear about actors running around the block doing press-ups, get yourself into a thing, well, you kind of get in the mode where you haven't got to do that anymore, you can switch that on, because you've learned how to do that. But sometimes you lose something by forgetting that. You know, that memory comes back to you, and you start going back to your basic stuff and why you've gone on. They're the reasons that you went on. So I'm not saying I do press-ups and run a mile around the block, because I'll be too knackered to actually do the scene probably. But you know, it's just that basic techniques that you knew when you was a young man, you know, and that stood you in good stead. And really just about life, you know, about the way the world works now, you know, because we kind of get lost in a bubble somewhere. When you get to a certain age, you're always thinking about the old days. It wasn't like that then, you know, we've done it like, well, yeah, that's great and it's very nostalgic and all that, but actually the world's moved on. And we have many times when we used to sit down and just have a chat about what's happening in the world, you know. I'm lucky enough to have a kid with me who was that your manager? And to sit down with a kid who's actually really intellectually up with what's going on in the world and actually puts his money where his mouth is and goes and does something about it and talks about it. And just kind of livens you up a bit, you know. And actually brings you into the 21st century, you know.
And Nick, I'll just bring you in this one. You've been looking for the perfect rig in the car for a while. Can you talk about the process that led you to these two guys?
Well, Ray was always my choice, and the reason that Ray is an exec producer on the film is because he fucking suffered when he told me bollocks for 6 years ago. That book, so credit to my book. But, and we did have we had 2 or 3 full starts over a few years, and we got into pre-production a couple of times. Anyway, I won't bore you with a development thing, but Ray and I met with a few different possible casters, and I talked with Ben about playing a smaller part in the film, about being one of the young coppers, and actually we never really met anyone that kind of inspired us that much as a caster, and so we talked about the idea of Ben doing it, because he is just so sort of, I wouldn't say left field is a choice, but he is, you know, he's just a kind of a raw talent rather than someone who's going to bring a lot of kind of drama score and everything to it. And so I think also the fact that excited me about Ben when I first talked to him about playing Carter was the fact that he said, I want to do it, but how the fuck am I going to play a policeman? And so that immediately made me feel excited about the fact that, you know, that we could sort of create some sort of a backstory for him and just make it feel sort of modern and fresh. And, you know, I also like the fact that there's two different sort of vernaculars really with Ray and with Ben. You know, there's a kind of an older tongue and a younger tongue, and they, you know, I think that's sort of exciting. So, but you know, we had a lot of full starts with him, but once we had Ben, we were off and running, because it suddenly, you know, when you're trying to cast a film, particularly a film that's kind of got a sort of a legacy like Sweeney, it is all about who plays the two roles, and there was a couple of false announcements over the years about who was going to play Carter before Ben came on, and it was interesting that it never really lit a touch paper, you know, but there was something, as soon as we talked about Ben playing Carter, it suddenly became a story that became interesting for people, and then suddenly, you know yourself when you get feedback from people, and it made a lot of sense, and so I felt really excited about that, and then once that was done, we were off and running.
Nick, how daunting or thrilling is it planning and shooting a major action set piece in an iconic London landmark, and was that landmark always in the Trafalgar Square?
It wasn't always Trafalgar Square. Really, the first draft of the script I wrote, which was in 2006 or 2007, was actually in Oxford Street. I mean, when we were, you know, that's when we had a couple of full starts, and we sort of got nowhere with it, and with approaching the council about trying to do a big action sequence in central London, and then again, I won't bore you with the details of the thing, but when the film went to turn around, and then we bought the rights of Fox, and then I rewrote the script from page one, and then I thought, well, given the fact we know we're not going to have any or very little money to make the film, the one thing that would help sell the film is shooting an action sequence in an impossible location. So I sort of set myself that target really. And I mean, actually, it's filmed in one day, that sequence in Trafalgar Square, and there's a whole kind of history to it. And they spent a year basically working with the council of trying to convince them, and then developing weapons with the Ministry of Defence that made no noise. And so these guys are running around with essentially toy guns. And we painted on all that stuff afterwards, and so...
Jamie sharing that bang, bang,
I mean, it's terrifying, a sequence like that, but if you have no money, because what's terrifying about it is you don't have a second shot there, excuse the pun, but, you know, whereas if you've got money, you know, you can say, well, if the weather's bad, you know, you've got a chance to go back. But we had one Sunday, it was the 6th of November, I remember it clearly, and, you know, we had that moment to shoot that, and everything had to be lined up perfectly, because it was basically all our money went into that one sequence, really. And so it was any sort of force majeure would have killed us, you know. But it was a great experience, and you know, apart from feeling like it was an aneurysm, the feeling afterwards of thinking, you know, we might have a sort of sequence to cut together there in an iconic location was really exciting.
So that's bringing the actors in this as well. Certainly
You, Alan, along with Down Abbey. I imagine that's your last sequence. What was it like for you?
That was incredible. I mean, as he says, we were definitely under time constraints, but everyone just went for it, and it was absolutely amazing. I mean, running across, you know, as I say, an iconic location like that, shooting toy guns, and scaring the outdoors as well. We arrived halfway through the take. It was kind of interesting as they walked into, so we saw these guys firing semi-automatic weapons. But yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. Really great.
And then?
Well, I wasn't involved in that meeting.
You were
I chose to navigate it. It was it's one thing I haven't really had to do, you know, action sequences, and there's this all choreographed, you know, the one scene I'd done in the cab office, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to do it. So they had a stuntman there, you know, but I was surprised at how well I picked it up, and then I got this kind of egotistical envy towards the body double, and I didn't want him to do any of my stuff, apart from smash through the glass door. Yeah, didn't want him doing that. But it was, you know what, we walked around Trafalgar Square, you know, I wasn't involved in that scene, and the enormity of what it was about to do, and the team was about to do, kind of hit me, and you know, obviously I knew this was a big deal, just me being in this was a big deal, but it felt exciting and special that we was going to get to do something that no other film had done. you know what I mean? And it was just great to be a part of it, even though I wasn't a part of the action scene.
And Hayley and Ray, you were together for that sequence?
Well, we went to gun club that we went to, the range.
Yeah, gun
So Stoke Coaches, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. We had a go with guns, and then we spotted each other, didn't we?
Yeah.
We either had to look after each other and working with the team. So by the time it came to Trafalgar Square, there was a kind of choreographed dance almost as to what goes where and when, and so we're always aware of where each other is at any given moment. But because there was no sound for the guns, I did find myself doing the oddest things like or Alan took so many pictures of me with this awful the gun look going gurney which luckily thankfully we've all been cut from the film. But I do feel there's no pullback.
Not for freeze frame, it didn't
It's great fun.
But it is worth saying, I think, that they're so bitty, those sequences to make, that I think at some point throughout any of those action sequences, the cast are quite often looking a bit bemused because, you know, there is literally a toy gun that goes, and, you know, it's a sort of, for them I think it's an act of trust with me that I'm not going to make it look like sort of pantomime, although it's slightly pantomime, but I'm not going to make it look kind of absurd, you know.
So Ray, was that a leap of faith for you, or did you trust it all coming out right in the end?
No, you trust your director anyway, but yeah, I mean, playing with guns ain't, you know, you revert to a little boy sometimes, but you know, they're not great things to play with, you know. It's just making them look real, really, you know, instead of all that luck, you know, if you break your wrist, you but you know, looking, the thing about shooting guns or anything to do with props, you've got to look like you know what you're doing with them. It's called acting, you know. You haven't got to be a gunslinger, you know. The camera kind of does that, you do it in a second, you know, the way you do it, it depends where the camera is, but yeah, you trust your director. And if you don't report it, tell you. And you not to you, believe me.
And Damian, you weren't in that sequence, were you got it?
No, I wasn't allowed out. Frank Haskins is back in the office just learning some samba moves on his own. Just passing the time with banana daiquiri on the corner. Yeah, it was a shame that, but I knew that when I was taking the role, and I just wanted to be in the Sweeney. I just thought it sounded like a right laugh, and it turned out to be. It was a treat. For me, as you know, I'm a cough and a spit, and it was a couple of weeks, you know, just coming to hang out with this lot, and you know, work with Ray, who I'd never worked with before.
We met at the races, didn't we?
We got off on tears. I
can't remember who it was.
Just chucking money away on the DJs. Very expensive day.
Yeah.
We spent 30 bob. But, you know, Nick came, it all sort of happened a bit by accident. It was all happened so quickly. A couple of conversations happened, and Nick sat me down and said, "This is my vision for it." I said, "That sounds fantastic." And we got sort of mutual friends, sort of social.
Let's go out.
He was a girl,
Actually, with Damian though, you know, because Haskins in the original show is much older than Regan, and that was part of the sort of slight reinvention of it. Actually, was to go for someone younger, where you know the class might have been, the ranking was come from class rather than age. And I quite like the fact that Ray could get kind of dressed down by Damian. I think that was quite an interesting dynamic, rather than going for not Michael Gamble, but someone who was kind of quite, you know, had that kind of old authority. And Damian and I talked about that would be a kind of good twist.
And, you know, there's always a sequel for the shootouts.
I can be on the phone in the office talking to them. They do have one of those novelty gun phones.
You never know. A couple of questions for Damian. First of all, do you find there's much difference working over here and working in the States, apart from maybe catering? Is the process pretty much the same?
The process is pretty much the same, yes. And Yeah, there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, the last 5, 6, 7 years about how TV's the new independent film market, or at least cable TV is. You know, so locations and page count that you shoot each day is fairly similar. If you're doing Captain America or something like that, obviously then you shoot a page a day, just like in the old days. But we're all doing the same sort of thing. You know, people, yeah, catering's a bit better over there, but only marginally. But Chris, catering was lovely. We did have to get quite a lot of sushi in on our own there, which we, yes, it wasn't pie and mash and beer on the Sweeney. It was sushi and sake on this, which was it's the modern Sweeney. But yeah, they're very similar. The setup is the same. The crew are all doing the same thing. British crews just have it over the American crews, in my view, and you work shorter hours here.
And the second question, obviously when Homeland started, there were no expectations. Now we've got a new series looming. Are you feeling under pressure to deliver?
I think there is, yes, there's less anonymity than there is when you're filming the first time. And I think pressure comes from the writers down. And yeah, there is. Deliver as highly as you did the first season, and don't disappoint people. Yeah, you're in a bit of a goldfish pond this time.
It's going to be good.
Thank you.
There's a front row jumping lavender.
Ray, you alluded to it earlier. You're actually in that show. Did you work with John Ford at all other than that?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work with John. I think it was about 4 separate placements. A little film called Mescaline, and I was in Cabinet QC with John. There was something else I'd done, but I liked him as a man, you know, as well as an actor. He was a fantastic actor. And, you know, he was an icon. And that was one of the things about doing this when we came to do it. I kind of thought, you know, how do you follow that? How do you try and make that better or even as good? But you can't. It's impossible. You know, the man was fantastic at what he'd done, so you have to kind of reinvent it, really make it your own. You know? It's the only way you could possibly work it. So. But I actually loved it. I remember realising something at that point, you know, that, and I was rehearsing Ill by Mouth at the time, and I was doing a play at Royal Court, and I had a really bad day on Cabinet, where I had this long scene, 15-minute scene, and I couldn't remember a line. As they said action, I forgot it. You know, your brain switched off, and it was gone. I was dead. It was my body saying, I've had enough, you know, done. And I remember the extras at the end of the night thanking me for giving them another 4 hours. And you know, it kind of, you know, he's a confidence killer, you know. And I had a great director in, his name Charles Beeson, and who said, "No, listen, you're all right. Don't worry about it. You know, tomorrow's another day." And John Ford was terrific about it because, you know, I made the day very long. And the next day I came back and I was writing on because I was banging. It's probably one of the best things I've ever done as an actor the next day. But just watching him as a man who had so much dialogue every day to learn and go to his Willie Baby on, people started saying he's not very sociable. And I think that's kind of what happens when you carry a show like that, or a film on your shoulders, that you actually do go and knock yourself away. You have to be on the ball, you know. And it was a complete and utter professional, but a good guy that went with it as well. So I kind of learned something from him, you know, about being humane about things, you know, just being, giving people time, you know. He was a very special man, I think. You know. I didn't cry.
It's a lady, Francis.
Yeah, it's a question for Nick, really. Just how difficult was it to try and modernise the Sweeney and to make the film you want to make? And you've got this very sort of loose cannon maverick, Jay's policing it. The first time about policing is police interventions and public investigations. How difficult is it to modernise?
Someone's getting electrocuted.
Well, I always.
Mine's an airplane.
Anyone check the code in?
Simon's phone's on
To find.
Simon's phone's on silent.
No, I mean, I always thought from when I first got involved in the film, you know, in 2006, that the only way to make it for me would be to make it almost postmodern, you know, rather than, there was never a thought for me to make it set in the 70s. I always thought that the London skyline was sexy and cinematic, and as we, of course, the great thing about developing film over such a long period of time is the skyline got sort of better and better. But that's how long it took. I don't think the Gherkin was even there. But so there was the visual aspect of it, which I always thought you would have to make, very, very sort of modern, and then. You know, the fact is that you can't, the police can't do now, we know, I mean, first of all, it's a film, you know, it's not a documentary or whatever, and so I think for me there was always a slight licence with what you could kind of do, you know, with a film, but, you know, I always, part of the problem is that you can't, you know, the police can't act anymore. We know they can't act anymore like they used to in the 70s and the 80s when the show was. Even though there's a lot of police corruption around, etc. now, the fact is that so much of policing is about bureaucracy and sort of pen pushing, and very little of policing is about meeting crime head on, which is what the Sweeney actually do. And so, but then the dilemma I had is, you know, I don't want to make a film about police bureaucracy. You know, I wanted to make essentially an action thriller, and so. You know, I basically put the whole kind of the internal affairs guy in there as a kind of engine to show that, you know, they can't just get away with doing whatever they want. There is a price to pay, and then I came up with the idea of making him Hayley's husband, etc. And so they're kind of, it felt more natural by the time we got to film it. But originally in the script, he was literally just the internal affairs guy, and you know, it's not it's not that easy to sort of to kind of just reimagine something and make it completely plausible. There's, you know, you know, I spent a long time basically thinking about, do I want to make a film which is about the kind of internal struggles of a police department? Do I want to make a film which is a bit of fun and entertainment? And I opted for the second option because ultimately that's what I want to watch. And for some people, that will be an issue, the fact that there's not enough consequence for the police and the fact that they run around folks who have assault rifles, etc. But as a viewer, I would rather watch an action movie than a kind of internal affairs movie, and so that's why I made that decision.
We've got time for two last questions. There's a gentleman here in the front row.
Thanks, Chris. It's a follow-up to that, really. You've made... A lot of directors aspire... A lot of British directors aspire to make Hollywood movies. Without the budget, without big studio support, and all the rest of it. You have made an authentic, plausible, believable action thriller set in London with a plausible cast playing plausible police officers.
I like you. Stop where you were here.
But it's a viable British thriller. I wondered whether that was foremost in your mind when you were setting it up with Ray and the guys, that it had to stand on its own 2 feet alongside those Hollywood movies, like Miami Vice, etc. And the second supplementary big question is, will they ever see it?
Well, the first question is that, for me, that was an exciting challenge, is that, you know, our production budget was £2 million. And, you know, we're trying to compete with 50, 60, $70 million movies, and that doesn't make me feel daunted. It makes me feel quite liberated in a way, because the expectation, I mean, I'm also aware of that, a remake of Sweeney, directed by me, the expectation is going to be fairly low, and so, in a weird way, it's a good place to start, because you can sort of impress people. That's different.
Michael Mann for Sweeney too.
If the development process takes as long as it last time, be fucking dead by the time. So in a way, it's quite a liberating place to be. Is that you haven't got a kind, you haven't got the same sort of worries that the studios have about kind of, and that's why ultimately I think some of the studio movies don't feel as authentic because they're made by sort of committees where the thing about the Sweeney is, even though it might feel a bit rough in places, that it is entirely my ambition, and if the film's shit for people, then that's absolutely my failing, because I didn't have sort of 20 studio execs saying to me, do this, do that, and so, it's a liberating experience, and it is all about, for me, what the strength of the film is about the relationships with the characters, and that's why you get a good cast like these guys, and, because, again, I think that that's probably another area that they pay less attention to in Hollywood, is the relation between the characters. You can get amazing action sequences, but not such plausibility between the characters. So that doesn't cost any money, to sort of have kind of decent relationships and sort of viable kind of situations. What costs money is car chases and shootouts and stuff. So I always thought the thing to work on is the characters, really. And the second question is, I think we all, apart from Hayley, we all want to do a sequel. I mean, it is all about how the first one does. If it doesn't make any money at the box office, which is where that's where the money, that's where the talking is done, then we wouldn't do one. But I think that we've always enjoyed making it, And so,
right, would you?
Would I? I'd jump at a chance to do it again, without any shadow of a doubt. I enjoy making films, and some experiences are better than others, and most of the time they're great experiences, but turning up to go to work on this every day was an absolute pleasure, and that comes from the top, that comes from your director and your first assistant who run a set, and that goes right way through a cast, and so you look forward to go to work in the morning, and I have it every day, I read it twice on Sundays.
I think there is a feeling with making something like Sweeney that everyone is involved in something that's potentially special. Well, it's definitely special because it's legacy. And then you've got potentially to make a good film as well. But it's really about the fact that you are, it's one of the very few iconic brands in the UK, behind Bond and maybe the Professionals that, and so I think it's a real privilege for all of us to make it.
Yeah. We have time for one very last quick question from
Ben, you're an actor, writer, director, musician. Just wondering for you how you juggle all of those, how you find that balance in your professional life, and if moving forward, if you see any one of those starting to take priority for you.
I found it really difficult. I was offered everything I wanted at the same time. I was ready to make Your Manners years ago, and obviously I was kind of unproven as a filmmaker, and it took the success of Strictly Max for all those other things to happen, and so I said yes to everything, and that was, I guess, my naivety, because I thought I'd be able to do all these things to the high standard that I like to do things, and also be able to have a personal life as well, which is obviously not realistic, and that's the thing that suffered. I sacrificed time with my friends and my family, and just time on my own, to get my head together. I had to sacrifice all of that in order to do these things. And going forward, I'm going to have to be very careful about what I choose to do next. I don't think it's a case of there'll ever be one I'd rather do more than the other. I love them all, and they all allow me to express my talents or my ideas in different ways. And I feel very privileged to be someone who doesn't have to rely on the acting to pay the bills, or rely on just the music. I haven't had to do roles in films, or take Casualty in the Bill roles and stuff like that I wouldn't want to do because I had to pay the bills, because luckily I had the music and the music was going well. It's allowed me to kind of really pick and choose what I want to do. And so far, when I look at my career, I started off in adult with really great young cast of up and coming actors, and then I worked with Michael Caine straight after that. And then I find myself working with Winstone, Damian, Hayley, Atwell, Alan, you know, the list goes on. Like, it's a dream come true, and I find myself now in a position where pretty much whatever I want to do is my choice, except I'm so burnt out now that I don't know what I want to do. You know, I don't know what I want to do, so I'm going to have a little break and really decide what it is for me.
On the way out the bus, when it musicians, they can't make it.
Well, they keep one got the top floor for us, didn't they?
Okay, well, the tape recorder just clicked, and I think that means we're running out of time. So thanks all for coming, thanks for your questions, and thanks for responding.
Alan Leach, Ben Drew, Hayley Atwell, Ray Winstone, Damian Lewis.